companies have been killing themselves the same way they've been killing themselves for centuries. Not through competition, not through markets, through battling the incorrect war altogether. Sun Tzu realized that 2,500 years ago, yet most leaders now lack his most important insight. What if all you believe you understand concerning a competitive strategy, in fact, thwarts success? We at Nexus Wisdom see the same patterns repeat ad infinitum in business history. Firms fretting about competitors and forgetting their own lethal vulnerabilities. Managers who could recite Sun Tzu on tactics but never learned his profoundest wisdom. Everyone reads The Art of War as a how-to on beating someone else. 13 chapters on battlefield strategy, espionage, and competition tactics. But what if it isn't? What if it is a mirror? It reflects the war you're in as a war within yourself? What if Sun Tzu's most profound observation was less a war against enemies and more a war against yourself? Sun Tzu wrote, "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you need not fear the results of 100 battles." But read Business Failure, and what does it say? The enemy most often exists within. The organizational ego that won't admit the market changed. The institutional pride that refuses to pivot when strategy isn't working. The corporate fear that keeps companies playing it safe while opportunity passes by. Consider the case of Kodak. The engineers there created the technology of digital photography in 1975. They possessed the technology. They comprehended the potential in the marketplace. They even knew it would one day displace film. But the company could not go to war over its own identity as a firm founded on film. Every discussion, every choice, every strategy was translated through a single question. How do we save our film business? Kodak didn't fall to Nikon or Canon. Nor did they fall to Sony or Panasonic. They fell victim to themselves, to their own failure to cannibalize their cash cow before someone did. Look at Netflix's alternative strategy. Reed Hastings didn't merely compete with Blockbuster. He battled his winning DVD model into streaming. Reflect on how unnatural this was. Netflix was profiting hand over fist with DVDs by mail. The customers were happy. The growth was robust. Every business expert would have said, stick with your core competency. But Hastings got Sun Tzu's ultimate lesson. The most difficult war is the one you fight against your own success. Where Blockbuster was in the midst of defending their store-based business, Netflix was in the midst of killing their own DVD business. The competitor was not Blockbuster's late fees or lack of choice. The competitor was Netflix's own attachment to what was working. This pattern repeats everywhere. BlackBerry couldn't fight their addiction to keyboards when touchscreens emerged. Borders couldn't wage war against their beautiful bookstore model when Amazon offered convenience. Yahoo couldn't battle their own portal identity when Google offered simplicity. When you look over time, Sun Tzu's true teaching emerges. The deadliest enemy is within every organization. It's resistance to altering, sure, but something vastly more insidious and lethal. It is the voice that mutters, "This is how we've always done it." But in a whisper, you're not aware you're hearing. It is the security that stems from having succeeded the previous year. But it is so ingrained, you blur it into wisdom. It is the knowledge that previous experience provides a certain outcome in the future, but it is so rational you never consider it. Sun Tzu referred to it as knowing yourself. What does it really boil down to in business? The brutal frankness in recognizing blind spots in the organization. Intellectual courage in challenging most efficient techniques. Emotional strength in breaking up lucrative formulas before the marketplace does it to you. Above all, it is recognizing that your strongest suit, uncontrolled and unchecked, is inevitably your lethal flaw. How does one do it then? Sun Tzu gives a template, but it is embedded in military jargon. First, visualize your inner war field. What are the sacred cows within your organization? What are the methods that cannot be touched? What assumptions were never challenged? These are vulnerabilities in disguise, masquerading as strengths. Second, identify your attachment points. Where is your organization emotionally invested in some particular way? What would be betraying our identity if you were to shift it? That is where the real enemy lives, in your attachment to who you mistakenly think you are. Third, disrupt yourself strategically. You need to be disrupted before your competition does, as you need to make your business model obsolete before market forces do. This is not innovation, it's a strategic war on the comfort zone. Young leaders think business is all about coming up with great ideas. Experienced leaders find it is all about being less wrong than most of mankind. But wisdom? Wisdom is knowing that the war it is worth winning is always the war against assumptions. So before you critique another competitor, before you analyze another trend in the marketplace, before you generate another how-to bash the competition scenario, answer the following uncomfortable questions. What assumption you make regarding your business model are you afraid to question? Not unwilling, afraid. What former success are you blinded by and missing in the future? What would you need to say regarding your organization that would be painful to acknowledge? What inner turmoil are you evading, since fighting it means accepting that you might be fundamentally in error in something you've established a sense of self in? That was the dialogue Sun Tzu desired leaders would engage in. Not with foreign opponents who could beat you, but with inner constraints that absolutely will beat you if left unchecked. This is the unpleasant reality which most organizations expend giant effort trying to avoid. Your most formidable competition does not come down the street, does not originate in Silicon Valley, does not disrupt your business from afar. You'll find it in your conference room mirror, speaking in your voice, with your rationale, and feeling most justified in its resistance to innovation. And up until leadership gets courageous and wages that war, truly wages it, not merely accepts it in strategy sessions, the business will continue to lose fights it hasn't a clue it is engaged in. That is what gives the wisdom of Sun Tzu endurance. 2.5 millennia ago, he realized the profoundest strategic victory is never winning over someone else. It is winning over the part of you that is holding you back. So here's what I keep coming back to. Maybe the biggest blind spot isn't out there in the market. Maybe it's in our own thinking. If this sparked something for you, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. It helps these kinds of conversations reach other curious minds who might add their own insights. Share it with someone who gets it. You know, that colleague who also questions conventional wisdom. I'd love to know what they think. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring. I'm working on something about those assumptions we never question in successful companies. Could be interesting to dig into together. But what I'm really curious about is your take. Have you noticed this pattern in your own experience? What assumptions in your industry or company feel untouchable? I learn as much from your perspectives as I hope you get from mine. This is what Nexus Wisdom is about. Exploring ideas that might shift how we see business. Not because I have all the answers, but because I think these conversations matter. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.